Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. I'm here to talk about the book that I've been reading this week, and that is T is for Tree by Greg Fowler. This, from looking online and such, it appears that this was also published under the title of Jam Sandwiches in America. I don't know about other countries as well, but there is the two titles, just so that you're aware. So, this book follows a boy called Eddie who lives in the room of his house. He lives with his grandmother. He's only allowed out on certain days when he's to use a shower and such. And there is a tree which is growing into his house, because in between his house and the house next door is quite a tight gap. There's a tree, and it's growing. It's growing so big it's now growing into Eddie's bedroom. And when he touches this tree, things happen. And as the book progresses, a girl moves into the house next door on the other side of the tree called Regan. And it's about his relationship with her, things that happen in his life. It spans 5 years, and yeah, things that happens when he touches this tree, and how they affect everyone around him and in his neighbourhood. So that's the general gist of the story. But I have serious problems with this book. So to quick, right, what happened was that I finished reading this on Friday, and I had an absolute rant about this book to my sister and our friend Sarah, who about this book, and my sister's response was like, "Oh God, that sounds really bad." And I was talking on a Facebook group about this as well. And people are saying how because of the things I described and that they probably wouldn't read it, and I've been reading, people also responded saying how they had similar issues with me. Goodreads, I went and looked and they had similar issues the same as me. And then yesterday I kind of spent, because I was I was at home, I was at theatre, I was doing, various things, and I kept on thinking about it. And even though I was tallying up the points of good versus bad, and it did kind of get better in my mind. This was a day after I'd finished it, but I still had my issues, and it shouldn't take a day after I finished it to tally up what was good and still have real serious misgivings about it. So because of that, I have to say this didn't work for me. I'm not saying it won't work for everyone, but it just didn't work for me. Now, Eddie himself, he describes himself as looking silly, looking stupid, dumb, that people don't look like him. And from the discussions, from looking online and everything, that is determined, because in the published copy for Jam Sandwiches, it says that he has Down syndrome, but this version, it doesn't say that on the back, and he never refers to himself as having Down syndrome because he doesn't recognise that he has a disability. He just sees himself as different from everybody else. Now, his grandmother Daisy, she really abuses him throughout this book. Now, in order to explain this part of my other misgivings, I'm going to have to reveal things that happen in the book. So for those of you who haven't read this book but are thinking about it, you better stop here, because if you don't want to be spoiled, then I understand if you want to turn off and everything, but for those who want to stick with it and learn more about this book and everything, thank you, please stick with what I'm about to say. Okay, so Grandma Daisy has been looking after him for 12 years when his story really begins. The first chapter is the aftermath of his birth, and then it goes straight into 12 years later, and then from that point it spans 5 years. So Grandma Daisy only sees Eddie 3 times a day, and that's when she brings his food to him in his room. He's locked in his room. He has an ensuite toilet, so he's able to use the toilet when he needs to. But other than that, he's not allowed out his room. He is only allowed out on shower day. We don't know when that is. If it's like once a week, once every couple of weeks, we have no idea. She and he gets really excited on shower day because that means he can go along the landing and the upper level, and he can peek over the stairs and see the glass in the front door, and he's never been downstairs. The concept of going downstairs is just so thrilling to him. Yet she calls him stupid. She says that he should have died at birth. She throws things. She's just so obnoxious to him. I found that really difficult to read. I mean, I don't have issues with, because I like true crime and such, and various other books. Like, if you like, you compare this to the abuse in this to It, for example, Stephen King's It, which I read last year and my sister and I discussed about earlier this year. It's nothing compared to that. So reading about abuse and such, I don't have an issue with. What I had an issue with was the fact that this woman does this for 12 years. No, sorry, hang on. She does it for 12 years when we've met. Then it's a further 3 years before she then changes. So yeah, so it's 15 years she does this. Suddenly the magical tree makes her become this loving grandmother again, and then it's a further 2 years before she starts talking to him about his mother, and it's like, oh my god, this is just she doesn't get a comeuppance. She says she's sorry twice, but then when she says that she's sorry, and she starts to, and as I said, it's that like 3 years before she starts talking about his mum. It's in that discussion with talking about his mum that she talks about how her husband had just died. Her daughter was pregnant. She had issues with her daughter in the relationship with her daughter. Her daughter ran away from the hospital. She was too afraid to take on the baby and everything. And she said, she actually uses the words, "and then I got lumped with you." Using negative terms like that it's just so wrong to me, because she's still projecting a negative image, a negative thing towards Eddie, even though they're okay now. And for the past 3 years, she's allowed him to go downstairs and watch TV and go outside and stuff. I hate the fact that she doesn't get her comeuppance for what she's done to him. And if you think about it, with because stuff that happens with Regan and her family, where she has this very happy family unit that falls apart and everything. Eddie hears all of the yelling and screaming and such that comes from her house, but nobody ever questions why Eddie doesn't go outside. Why doesn't Eddie ever leave his room and such? And the fact that social services also comes to see Mrs. Stanton, is the lady from social services, comes to see him from time to time, and at the point where he's 12 years old, she's asking him to count from 1 to 20 and recite the alphabet, and he can't do it in the slightest. To then 5 years later, because he touches the magical tree, that means that he's sitting loads of GCSEs and getting A stars in all of them. And she keeps on saying, like, when she comes to her first visit, about how she's already given Grandma Daisy chances and such. She's like, okay, I'll give you one more chance. No, if you're concerned about this boy and he's not getting the education that he should be getting, he's not developing the way that he should be developing, you should be doing something about that. I felt like screaming at Mrs. Stanton at some points. It was just. Now I understand that this is written as a third person from Eddie's perspective, and because of his disability, there is the question of the severity of his disability and his understanding of the world. So when he's let out for shower day, is that it's every day but he doesn't realise it, or is it that it is it is as you know, we see it there maybe like once a week, once every couple of weeks. He definitely is very, very clear that at one point where boys from the street tried to convince him to become their friend by doing a certain task, which covers him wetting himself. And when Grandma Daisy finds out, she goes ballistic and makes him go without clothes and wear adult nappies for a week. He's very, very clear about that. So to me, because he's very clear about that, it then makes me think that this whole thing of her shouting and throwing stuff and the way that she sees him and the shower day thing is a real, you know, thing that that she is doing this, and she only lets him out like once a week to go use a shower. It's not that she allows him to use the shower every day, and it's his disability that makes him not realise the severity of disability is having an effect on him understanding routines and such as that. Now, with the actual magic tree, that really annoyed me as well. I kind of just felt like, can't we just have this book where this boy has Down syndrome, he lives with his grandmother. Okay, there are some frictions to do with his mother, so he doesn't know about her. But can't he just be a boy with a disability from you know, a comfortable home, and it's about him proving others wrong about his capabilities? Why can't we have that? Why does it have to be that he can only learn stuff once he touches the magic tree, which is the representation of love? Just, that really irked me. The magic tree that talks to him, Mr. Tree, that grows into his room and ends up taking over his room. The that just magically makes Grandma Daisy better. That allows him to learn, that allows him to have this friendship with Regan develop the way that it does. The stuff that happens with Regan as well, it was like, because Eddie is locked in his room, in his world, he doesn't have a lot of stuff. This is going to sound weird. Doesn't have a lot of stuff happen to him. He has obviously various character development, and as I said, he has the abuse that he goes through with his grandmother. But Regan is the one who gets all of the crap thrown at her. Basically, she is the outsider in that she can go out, she can do what she wants and all that lot. But the fact that she goes through in 5 years, she goes through having a happy unit and everything, and being the girl who stands up to all the bullies in the street and being a really strong, confident character, to being a girl who has the, you know, full stuff with her dad losing his job, him becoming an alcoholic, he then starts beating her, he then leaves. Then she starts dating boys, and there's one boy in particular who starts abusing her. Then he falls out the picture, and her issues with her studies then start falling apart. She has a strained relationship with her mother. She then develops cancer, and it's like, that's 9 things. That is 9 things straight off the bat, and you're like, oh my god, give this girl a break already. And the abuse stuff that she goes through with her dad, I'm really, the whole thing of nobody questions why Eddie never leaves his room and everything. Nobody in the street, nobody questions that. And the fact that Eddie hears everything, because the houses are so close together and the tree is, you know, wedged between them. He hears everything that happens in that house. Why does nobody in Regan's house question all the yelling and hear everything that's happening in Eddie's house and the abuse that he's going through? He suddenly also, like, he becomes like this sudden therapist for Mrs. Elson, who lives down the road, and the magic tree reveals stuff that helps her as well. And it was just all just I didn't feel, I felt really frustrated by the ending as well. I understand it was Eddie's choice, what he did and everything, and what he was doing was for his friend, and it was a very loving thing for him to do. And as I said, the tree represents love and how it affects everyone, and how, you know, growing into the room, this room that's been lacking of love, and it grows into this beautiful thing. I get that, but the ending, I was like, oh my god, why did he have to do that to Eddie? There were things like when Regan fell sick, Eddie knew exactly what the condition was. He knew, you know, various details and that. Why, why did he know about that, but he couldn't understand? He had no, and he understood that her boyfriend was beating her. He understood about her dad being abusive and his alcoholism, but he couldn't understand that he was being abused at the same time from grandma days. It was just, it frustrated the heck out of me, this book. I wouldn't read it again. I wouldn't read any more books by Greg Fowler. It was very simply written. You could tell it was written for a young adult audience. But I just couldn't stand the fact that there was no comeuppance. There was just, it, oh god, no, I just didn't get along with this piece whatsoever. Now, of course, this is my opinion. You may want to read this book and find that you love it, and that's, you know, that's great if you do. But for me personally, T is for Tree is one of the worst books that I've read this year. Sorry guys, I have to be that blunt. I yeah. I don't know what to say any more than that. I did like Eddie. I did like Regan. Regan was a really lovely character. And I did like characters like Mrs. Elston. His friend, the older lady who lives across the road. But then at the same time, he becomes like a therapist to talk about everything and that's going on. And I didn't feel upset by the ending, as in I didn't feel emotionally connected to the characters to feel sad with the ending. I felt frustrated that Eddie had the ending that he had. So yeah, I didn't see the point of Eddie having that ending. But then I can understand why at the same time. It's so awkward a book. I kind of, yeah, I don't, yeah, it's a no from me, guys. Okay, and that's all I can think of to say about Tea is for Tree by Greg Fowler. If you guys want to give it a go, I'd say, you know, give it a go if you want to. It's really simply written. I read it in like 2 days. It's, yeah, really, really easy to get through. And that is, how many pages is it? It's 379 pages. So yeah, and it took me 2 days, so it's not a hard read at all. But the stuff that I felt uncomfortable with the abuse stuff, as I said, because there's no comeuppance. There's, yeah. So apart from those bits where I had issue with, it's an easy read. I wouldn't read it again, as I said. And Greg, sorry, I wouldn't read any more of your books, but if that's the way it is. But have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Entirely up to you, I'll let you decide. And I'll be back soon to reveal what book I'm going to be reading next. And I have bought a new book as well, so I'll be reading what that is, and that'll be going into the jars. Alright guys, bye.